Today I'm going to be talking about depression and the role that thoughts play in causing and maintaining depression. Hi everyone. In today's video we're going to be talking about thinking and the role that thinking can play in the onset and maintenance of depression and difficulties with low mood. But before I get into that, just a couple of disclaimers to go over. I'm a registered psychologist in the province of British Columbia, Canada, and this video is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute or replacement for advice from your doctor or mental health professional. Now, with those two things out of the way, let's start talking about thinking and depression. Now, in a previous video, I talked about a model for understanding depression, a model that discussed the interrelationships between behaviors, thoughts, and emotions. What you do, how you think, and the impact that they have on how you feel. And I talked about it kind of like a triangle, where each side of the triangle influences the other side of the triangle. Now, today what we're going to be focusing on is the thought-emotion side of that triangle and the way that thinking has an impact on how we feel. Now, the way we typically experience emotions is that something happens, situation occurs, and that causes our emotional reaction. So I have a fight with a friend and that triggers me to feel really distressed or upset. I make a mistake at work or I get reprimanded at work and I feel really down and really upset about what happened and the mistake that I made. So we usually experience it as it's a situation that leads to my emotional reaction. But what we know is that it's actually more complicated than that, and that what causes our emotional reaction is the way we interpret the situation, the way we think about it. And in that sense, our thoughts are the key determining factor in determining how we feel. So to explain this, let's imagine a scenario. And the scenario is that I have a lunch date planned with my friend Jimmy. Now, it's been a while since I've seen Jimmy. I'm really looking forward to this lunch date because we haven't had a chance to catch up in a really long time. So I'm getting ready to go to leave my house for the lunch date, and just as I'm about to leave the front door, I see that there's a sticky note that's been left for me, and all the sticky note says is that Jimmy had to cancel the lunch date. No other explanation, no other details or context. All it says is that Jimmy had to cancel. So let's imagine, try to think of what are the possible reasons, what are the possible explanations for why Jimmy had to cancel the lunch date. Well, it could be that maybe Jimmy just got really busy with work and just got overwhelmed with work and he just can't get away from work for the lunch date. So that's one possibility. Maybe another possibility is that Jimmy's just a bit flaky and a bit absent-minded, and he forgot about our lunch date and double booked himself, and so he can't make the lunch date because he has to do something else because he'd forgot about the lunch date. Maybe Jimmy was involved in a car accident and is really hurt and had to go to the hospital, and that's why he had to cancel the lunch date. Maybe Jimmy got a better offer. He got an offer from someone he likes more to go for a lunch date, and so he's canceling my lunch date to go out with the other person. Really, Jimmy? Or maybe Jimmy's canceling the lunch date because Jimmy actually doesn't like me. And Jimmy's never really liked me. And he only agreed to go on the lunch date because it was kind of a pity thing and he didn't know how to say no at the time. And so he agreed to go on the lunch date, never really wanting to go on the lunch date because he doesn't really like me. And so that's why he canceled the lunch date. So there's all sorts of reasons why Jimmy may have canceled the lunch date. But let's imagine now that I find out afterwards the real reason why Jimmy canceled the lunch date, and to think about what is the likely emotion I would experience in that situation. So suppose I found out that Jimmy canceled the lunch date because he just got overwhelmed with work. Well, I'd probably be a bit disappointed because I was really looking forward to going on the lunch date with Jimmy, but I understand that sort of thing happens, so it's a bit of disappointment. That's probably the most likely emotional reaction in that situation. Now suppose I find out that Jimmy canceled the lunch date because Jimmy's flaky and he forgot about the lunch date and double booked himself. Well, I'd probably feel a bit annoyed. Jimmy tends to do this a lot, and it's starting to get pretty annoying just how flaky Jimmy is. So annoyance would probably be the most likely and reasonable emotion in that situation. Imagine if I found out that Jimmy canceled the lunch date because he was in a car accident. Well, I'd probably be concerned and really anxious about Jimmy, worrying about whether he was okay or if he was seriously hurt in the accident. If I found out that Jimmy canceled the lunch date because he got a better offer from someone else, I'd probably be pretty mad. I'd probably be pretty angry at Jimmy because you don't do that to people. That's not really polite or respectful. So I'd probably be pretty angry at Jimmy if that was the reason that he canceled the lunch date. Now suppose the reason that Jimmy canceled the lunch date was that he doesn't actually like me, and that it was kind of a pity acceptance when he said he'd go to lunch with me, but he never wanted to go to lunch with me and has never really liked me. Well, the emotional state I'd probably have in that scenario is one of sadness and feeling pretty down and upset about it. So notice this one sticky note on my, near my door, just as I'm about to leave for this lunch date, could mean a variety of different things. And my emotional reactions are very dependent on how I interpret that note to determine how I'm going to feel. Now, the emotional reactions in each of these scenarios that I talked about aren't abnormal. Pretty much anyone would probably feel that way if that was the particular reason that Jimmy canceled the lunch date. So if anyone found out that their friend had to cancel a lunch date because they were involved in an accident, most everyone would probably be worried and concerned about their friend. So it's not so much the emotion that's the problem. The problem is the interpretation. If our interpretations are inaccurate, if the way we think about a situation is inaccurate, it's going to lead to an emotional response that is perfectly normal based on that interpretation. But if the interpretation is wrong, then the emotional reaction is going to be inappropriate or inconsistent. So for example, if the real reason that Jimmy canceled the lunch date was because he got overwhelmed with work and couldn't make it, but I interpreted it that the reason Jimmy canceled the lunch date was because he didn't like me, I'm going to feel really down and really sad in that situation, even though the real reason he canceled the lunch date has nothing to do with not liking me. And this is sort of what happens in depression. That when someone's experiencing the depression, they tend to interpret situations in overly negative ways. And based on those negative interpretations, it leads to a depressed state. It leads to feelings of sadness. So we often think about depression as a mood disorder, Whereas I would suggest that it probably has more to do with a thought disorder or inappropriate thinking rather than inappropriate emotions. The emotions are absolutely appropriate if the interpretation is accurate. But if the interpretation isn't accurate, the emotion is an exaggeration. It's overly negative when it doesn't need to be. Now, one important thing that tends to happen in depression that makes this process worse is that negative thinking tends to hook you into even more negative thinking. So, for example, I see the sticky note about Jimmy canceling lunch, and I think to myself, well, Jimmy canceled lunch because he doesn't like me and has never really liked me. My thinking probably isn't going to stop there. I'm probably not going to have that thought and then think, oh, what am I going to have for lunch anyway? I'll probably start to think in even more negative ways. I get hooked into this negative thinking spiral where one negative thought leads to another and leads to another. So I think to myself, Jimmy canceled lunch because he doesn't like me. Maybe he's never liked me. Maybe other people don't like me. Is there something wrong with me that people keep doing this to me? Is there something maybe inherently unlovable about me? Maybe no one will ever like me. Maybe I'm flawed at my core. Maybe I'm destined to be alone and that there's just something inherently wrong with me. Now notice that negative thinking has spiraled down, and so what started out as a single sticky note that said my friend canceled lunch with no other explanation has now become me thinking about myself as inherently unlovable and flawed. The negative thinking tends to hook into even more negative thinking. And the worse I feel, the more likely it is I am to think in negative ways. And the more I tend to think in negative ways, the worse I tend to feel. And the cycle continues. So that's one of the ways that negative thinking can really contribute to causing, maintaining, and making depression and feelings of depression a lot worse. Now, in future videos, I'm going to be talking about some tools and skills that you can use to better identify some of these overly negative thinking patterns and to begin to change some of these overly negative thinking patterns. But I just wanted to give a bit of a background, a bit of an understanding of how thinking plays a role in depression. So I hope that makes sense. I would love to hear your thoughts and ideas about this, so please leave me some comments in the comments section down below. If you've been enjoying my videos and want to see more, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and you'll be alerted every week when I post a new video. So that's all for today's video. As always, thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one.